23rd in 1980. And every environment, every age produces its needs. That nature has a means to satisfy the hunger and what have you that society has. So society should develop institutions to answer the needs of the individual, the community, and the nation. And I have something from American history called Manifest Destiny. Have anybody ever heard of Manifest? Manifest Destiny was an idea that the United States should become a two-ocean power, an Anglo-Saxon two-ocean power, which it became. And when they developed that concept, say in the late 1830s or something like that, around that period, they pushed everything aside to fulfill the goals of that. If they had Indians here, they just killed all the Indians, put them on reservations. It was so cold that they developed styles back east for buffalo robes and what have you. So they killed all the buffalo. They had a style already waiting for them back east and in Europe, that everybody that period was wearing buffalo robes. So it was 6 million buffaloes on the plains. The Indian kind of worshiped the buffalo. It used the hides for tents and houses. It used the bones and everything to help build those houses sometimes, and of course wood. Also the buffalo gave him mobility because he ate the buffalo also. So all over the plains of the West was buffalo. So the Indian could fight, he could eat, he could rest, he could do all of those things. America studied them and found that, of course, what gives them their freedom? The buffalo. So can you imagine a diabolical mind so evil? They said, well, we're just extinctive. And they're almost extinct. When I was younger, when I was very young, they had a few buffalo in national parks, well guarded and protected. Now they've developed bigger and bigger herds of buffalo. But when I was very young, that was coming to the end of the period where they just wiped them out. They brought people out on trains and just slaughtered them. But Manifest Destiny, they glorified the West. Go west, young man. And just think, in those days, if you had a case back east, you could go west and do what you want because ain't nobody knew where you went, who you was, or nothing. You just went out there, you could change your name, you know what I mean, buy a farm, do anything you want to do. That's how it was. Okay, so they set everything aside to fulfill their destiny. They called it Manifest Destiny. One thing I want to mention, though, that we are responsible for our own evolution, and we call it cutting the cord. In those days, we say you got to cut the cord, the umbilical cord, with Washington, with Sacramento, that's the state capital back there. So we had to study the best examples to be the best. If you want to study if you want to run fast, you have to study the best records. You got to break their record or try to break their record. And so what if you don't break their record, you get close, you know what I mean? You improve. How tall, how fast, how moral, how courageous, how productive, by studying the best productive peoples. Science says that any living organism In order to survive, it must either adapt to its environment or change its environment. I'll say that again. Any living organism, I mean anything that's alive, from single cell to multicellular, whatever it is, in order to survive, they have to either adapt to their environment, adjust to their environment, or change their environment. Okay. That's just a law of science. We want to go over the 6-point program, but we had a 6-point program just coming out of the joint. And orientation brochures and all of that. And it said something we say here all the time, says declare jihad in Oakland. Jihad against poverty, that's starvation. Ignorance and darkness, of course. And injustice, inequality. We had a statement, don't let nobody turn you around, or don't let nobody turn us around. So there's a statement, I love my family, but they ain't gonna turn me around. No drug, right? You gotta remember, this is 1981, so everything, this is at the end of a great era in black history. No fame, all these things and just about knocked black people by then. Yes. Drugs, fame, fortune. A lot of black people had had a chance to get over by that time. So this is saying, I love my family, but I ain't gonna let them turn me around. This is what I was just a note to myself. We love that no fame, no women. This is people. Our leadership have been turning around for too long. They've been turning around. So we have here Eldridge been turning around. Huey been turning, Huey Newton. Congressmen, mayors. Remember that was in the old days when we were just getting mayors and everything. A lot of Negroes was happy. Educators, everybody was turning around. Keep your manhood. If you have to go to prison, go on to prison. If you have to lose your house, lose your house. Your car, your motorcycle, your boat, whatever it is you got. You know, if you have to lose it, this was the attitude we had then. And we're reviewing this just to remind us how well have we done? Because the title, what is it, focus and goals and focus or something like that? Focus on the future. It also has to do with goals. Okay, so anyway, then at that age we dealt, you know, you're younger, we dealt a lot with habits. So habits was either a liability or an asset. You know, it added to your capital. Either it built you up, we used to call them slave building habits or liberating habits. Your habits, what you do every day, they either liberate you. So now you got to remember, in those days we was really into physical fitness, because that was in movement. When you study how the people got diverted, well, when I went to Algeria and I was there with the brothers, they didn't have a physical fitness program. So Sekou Dinga and I, we'd go out to where I lived, that had a basketball court, Moretti Villa. We used to play basketball almost every day. Of course, you know, basketball, you're gonna be in shape playing ball, especially one-on-one, you know. After a few games, you don't have to do nothing else. because I used to run on the beach and everything. The physical discipline. And then in the period of South America and other periods, and during this period, was the height of our marathon running and training and running in the hills. And we realized something. Out of all this stuff that was coming against us, one of the saving forces from the very beginning, when we studied our people, when I went to Algeria, the first thing I told them, y'all ain't gonna have no revolution here. Y'all going down to the Rue de Douche Morad, buying hashish every day, so you ain't gonna have no revolution here. Your habits, that's what y'all do, you know, so you're not gonna have a revolution here, and then, or come back to have one. And I said, as a white woman that I saw, I said, when we had a meeting, I said, this is the first time I've been up here on the second floor. I said, but when I'm from downstairs where I would hang out, I'd see a white woman up here with a mint julep or something hanging on the balcony. And I don't know what she's doing up here. Only thing I could see is that she's a white woman. Say habits. In the beginning, you make habits. In the end, habits make you. It's simple, but it's big. So we had a combination. Our lifestyle changed. During this period, our lifestyle was getting up early in the morning, going up in them hills, running. A short run would be 5 miles. A regular run would be about 7 or 8 miles with heavy weights in your hands, of course. And plastic on, so when you finish running, you could lean forward and pull up your plastic, and you could spill out about a quart of water, a quart of sweat. That was that look. With all the things that was happening, that was a big release. Now you got to remember, we got the game on what's going to go on around our environment. So we was going to have, let's see what, life is a continuous evolutionary process. I'm not going to read about midgets and stunted growth right now. But here's an outline for the week of 2/6/84. So we're going to deal with a lot of black churches. The Sunday before an event on 2/6/84, which is, I guess, February the 6th, we'll be at San Francisco State, and Kwame Ture, Kwame Ture, what's his name? Stokely Carmichael is going to be there. He's going to be downstairs in the A&E building. And he would be at Wheeler Hall in Berkeley the next day at 7. Harry Edwards, anybody remember Dr. Harry Edwards? Dr. Harry Edwards. Probably seen him before. He's a big sports psychologist. He's Imam Jamil's friend. When I asked Imam Jamil, did he know Harry Edwards, he said, yeah, I knew him when his name was Puddin'. You know how niggas had, black people had names. So anyway, all the stuff we're going to do, Ron Karinga on the 17th will be at San Jose State. He had just got off the list of being a handkerchief-headed Negro. Ron Karinga. Anybody remember Ron Karinga?
Well, I primarily know him was for Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa, yeah, he started Kwanzaa. He used to call his, Kwanzaa. Yeah, Kwanzaa, Malana Ron Karinga. Ron Karinga. He used to call his name Maulana Ron Karinga. That means teacher, Ron Karinga. On the 12th, Julian Bond is going to be at the University of San Francisco. Somebody else is going to be at Merritt College. Okay, reputation. This is from January the 8th, 1983. reputations. This is about the reputations that we had picked up about people. Arab mosque, Arab social clubs, what we call them. They was like sugar daddies, all day suckers. Okay. Islamic centers set purposely to check the spread of Islam. These Arab centers. The mosques were strategically located to check the spread of Islam near campuses, to stop the spread of Islam, because that's where most of the Muslims were in those days. They were on campus, so they were strategically located. This is what we had picked up by '83. Pakistanis, very racist, culturalized Islam, became American. American dream, reason for hijrah, to bow down to Caucasians and look down on blacks. Learn lessons from Africa. We'd been in Africa by that time. Arab Asian store owners, bad example of Islam. When I was young, all the stores in Oakland mostly was owned by Chinese. By 1980 and 84, 85, the Arabs from Yemen had bought up all the stores in Oakland. And of course, they were Muslims. Some of them would come to our masjid for Jummah. About this time, a few years later, one of the brothers came to Jummah, and he was crying during the Jummah. He said, Imam Musa, I'm going to sell my store. He had a store up there on 85th and what was East 14th at the time, and I'm going home. 2 weeks later, he came. He said, well, Imam Musa, it's been nice knowing you. I'm headed home. I done sold my store. All the other Arabs said, don't go to Masjid al-Islam. It was years before they came back, because we had an influence on this brother, and we helped improve his Islam. He said, we don't want none of that. They were very bad at, the people would ask, y'all with those old Arabs up the street? Now, imagine the Arab store owners in our neighborhood. They got a couple of Negro girlfriends that can come and get a few groceries, extra every now and then. Now, everybody know it. Their wives don't know it, but everybody else know it. So imagine the example of Islam. And then all the people, we pushing Islam, we juiced up over Islam. And we telling the people, and the people is asking us, y'all with them old Arabs up the street? Those Arabs, So we had to discuss deliver the Islamic message in a way that we let people know that whatever they have that Arabic writing over that wine they got and that pork in the store. And we tell the Negroes, oh, that's haram. That ain't right. Mm-hmm. If you go in any store and they got wine in there and they got pork in there, which they all had, you got to imagine they selling, like we was talking to one of the store owners, and the subject come up about wine, or we would walk in a store and we'd see that they may not know us, so they see this Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You know what that is? I said, of course, yeah. Yeah, of course I know what that is. I'm a Muslim, And I also know that refrigerator you got full of that pork and that wine. If we didn't sell wine, and if we didn't sell pork in this neighborhood, we wouldn't make no money, which was semi-true. Imagine a store in the black community that don't sell no, this is in 40 years ago, that don't sell no pork and no wine, no alcohol, no beer. You ain't gonna sell no beer and no wine. Shh, you're gonna be so broke, you ain't gonna know what to do. All right, so Malaysians, very good crew. Boy, it was thousands of Malaysians here in America, and there's still quite a few. Prayer, love for Allah, non-political, but they were target of the Saudis because they were non-political, and the Saudis were political, and the Iranians were political. Iranians, well-intended, pushy. We have the solution. But they demonstrate a type of mizan, balance. The idea about blacks are strong, not very bright, rough around the edges, very little knowledge of Islam. That's just the way people thought. They, you know. I mean, they would be, I have here Al-Fatiha, and I have surprise. If you could recite Al-Fatiha, they would be shocked. You Muslim? Yes, I am. You know Al-Fatiha? Of course I know Al-Fatiha. I say it 17 times a day, minimum. Okay. Compare us, colonial language, culture, history, deen, yet brainwashed. We talk about a colonial mentality and a slave mentality. A slave mentality is something that we grew up under here. Now you got to remember, this society hated everything, we hated how we looked, hated all that stuff, but it taught us everything we knew. So suppose, what is he going to teach you? He's going to teach you slave perpetuating habits. In the beginning, you make habits. In the end, the habits make you. So you're going to have, your people are going to have slave perpetuating habits, not nation-building habits. Now, immigrants, they have a colonial mentality. You notice Dr. Siddiqui in that thing, he said, Imam Musa is looking at this stuff, man, that we've been looking at all our life. And we never even, it's like we wouldn't even know what we was looking at when I described racism. It was a nice description. I mean, a thorough description of racism. And they just, this is in South Africa, that the whole society is based on racism, right? Apartheid, like segregation. And they live there. The hall is full of those people that they thought they knew all about racism till they heard somebody come from the United States basically saying, y'all don't know nothing about racism. Let me tell you this here. And they said, man, good God Almighty. It's like, you know, you could see he was just impressed. Man, this is deep. Okay, so a slave mentality is one, like we used to say, if you're white, you're all right. If you're yellow, you're mellow. If you're brown, stick around. If you're black, get back. Who taught us that? He did. If you're white, you're all right. If you're yellow, you're mellow. You know, brown, stick around. But if you're black, get back. Okay. So, a colonial mentality is the mentality that you still have your language, you still have a lot of your culture, you have your curries, your foods, and everything, right? But a colonial mentality still say that the white man is the boss because they colonized us. And if you want to see subservient people, go in the immigrant community. even now, and they've taught their children to be subservient. They've taught their children that everybody's happy to be here. And they didn't come to change. That's our project during this period. That we gotta not con the immigrant community, but we gotta get them to feel comfortable with us instructing their children. Their children now are well educated, right? And all of that, and they want to be Americans. Right? And here's what we're telling them. You want to be an American? Put yourself out there and help America. You participate in rescuing America. You have the knowledge, right? You just don't know what's going on, that's all. That's why it was none of the immigrants' children was at any of those demonstrations. Because their parents was told, somebody told them it would have had to have been some small number, a sprinkling of Muslims, except accidental Muslims. One family didn't get the word. They was Pakistani family down there. We saw them, right? It's not possible that you have all those thousands of people and hardly any Muslims, right? They just were not there. Plenty of white folks and everybody else. The word had to go out. When you see numbers like that, the word went out. Okay. The other thing on liberation, this was at the end of the black period, so we have programs like Islam, the True Liberation. Not BLA, Black Liberation, Army and all of that, which we all went through, but we're saying now, Islam is the true liberation through faith and iman, liberation through sacrifice, discipline, and work. Right. That's the true liberation. So that's where we kind of started from. This is an old list right here. File C's from San Francisco District Attorney's Office from residents of ADL informant Roy Bullock and San Francisco Police Officer Tom Gerard, released in connection with the second raid on ADL San Francisco and LA office. Categories such as Arab and Pinko are shown, This is 2 police officers that was on the FBI clearance list. And they were stealing information from the FBI and turning it over to the ADL, Anti-Defamation League. And these raids showed it. And you look right here, you'll see this on the front page, Masjid al-Islam. This is probably mid-80s, all that. So all this is not new. This is all a part and parcel of everything we've been dealing with ever since we've been here as a community. And when we talk about declaring jihad here, we declared jihad in Oakland, but it was not that type of jihad they thought. So what is this focus on the future? Goal setting for the future. In order to divert people from movement, the government had all kinds of different schemes. If you notice, there's a movie out now about Fred Hampton. Anybody? Is it? But have you seen the advertisement? Not the advertisement, but the advertisement. Fred Hampton, he was in Chicago, Black Panther, but he was good at working with poor white people, and they killed him. And in the movie, not the movie, because I haven't seen the movie either, but they have the system sliding a Negro some money, which was his name was O'Neill. the snitch. They gave him $300 to give a diagram. But just look up Fred Hampton.
Yeah, actually, I'm looking up. You want me to take a look at the trailer? Or?
Oh yeah, what is it?
The title is Judas and the Black Messiah. Is that the name of the movie?
That must be it. Judas.
Judas and the Black Messiah. That's the title of the movie. Yeah.
It's just come out. Go ahead. This is interesting. But that's good enough. Judas and the Black Messiah. Yeah. Judas, Judas goat. You know what a Judas goat is? Right. A Judas goat is a goat that collect all the other goats and bring them in the pen to get slaughtered, like Obama was a Judas goat. And he bring them through, and then there's a trap door. Because the white folks don't want to go around and collect all the goats. They're all out running. So the Judas goat go collect all the goats and bring them in the pen, and he go out the other door as a trap door. And all the other goats are there to be slaughtered. That's what a Judas goat is. He's there to, And so Judas and the Black Messiah, number 2 on the COINTEL list was to prevent the rise of a Messiah. Does anybody remember that from COINTEL program? Prevent the rise of a Messiah who would unify and electrify the movement. Later on, it says Malcolm X could have been that Messiah. Another thing I'd like for you to look up last Japanese surrender, 1974. On the Philippine Islands, it was the last surrender. It was one Japanese soldier lived on those islands in the Philippines for 29 years after the war. He wouldn't surrender. Anyway, I talked about that in a lecture. That came up the other day again because the 75th anniversary of the surrender of the Japanese. It might have been the 15th, 14th or 15th of August, because they dropped a bomb on. Huh? In 1974. That's 29 years. And they had a picture of him when he was handing over his sword. The reason I wanted that is because I mentioned it before, but it was about dedication. It was about stickability. That's what impressed me. And you could see from our readings, this is what we always said we need. We need this type of discipline and dedication, right? And these early years, this is after we done went through a period. This is during 1980, 1981s and 82s, and people in 84, Jesse Jackson is running for this thing or that thing. We got Mayor Harold Washington in Chicago, Mayor Bradley in LA. You know what I'm saying? We got all of these things, and many people are thinking that's the liberation. We're saying that ain't nothing, that's the trap. Right after that, people start thinking that it lived through segregation, how nice segregation was. Why? Because we had our own stores, our own shops, and our own community. And when they opened up, all the doctors would move out of the black neighborhood. They used to stay there with us. So you had people that inspired you. All the doctors, all the nurses, all the professors, everybody that could afford it that had to live in your neighborhood before, now was gone. So it left people on welfare. It left people like the Southeast was 20 years ago. Just murderers, dope fiends, and welfare. They used to call them welfare queens, at least way. Can you imagine how mean that is? Calling a person that need a little money a welfare queen. That's how they did it. Look, the old Euro done did the Negro so bad that this stuff is unnecessarily done. Okay. But now here we are. We went through all of the stuff that I've read about. All this stuff right here from 1981. What did it say? I come before you at a grave time in history. We've lost pride in self and others, lost of confidence in God, country, mom, apple pie, economic disaster, unemployment, cut off, cutbacks. That's when they was really beginning all those things that they talk about now. Cutbacks, cut off. Because before, America was big time. I mean, during this period, well, 1980, people that worked for GM, man, they made $20, $25 an hour then, when stuff is 1/3 the price they are now. They was living in the hills. They had the Negroes that, they had big money. And they were just workers. That didn't last long. They knocked that over. But we have to deal with puppet leadership, collaborators, fear of reprisals, cop-outs, sellouts, punk-outs. That's what we was dealing with at that time. All those things, all our leaders, Huey Newton was an alcoholic. Eldridge Cleaver was dealing with worse than death. The system had broken the back of all of our people, and we still talked a little bit of black stuff, but the real movement was dead. And we accept Islam in those days. And so Islam was the new force. So we've survived. We're here. Oh, well, what are we going to do? I'm talking about right now. First of all, we have to see how well have we done since then up to now. We're still here. Did anybody expect us to be here? Absolutely not. The government didn't, and definitely the Muslims didn't think. Nobody, and the people who collaborate, they did not think that we was going to be here this long. Why? Because the history, everybody else has already punked out, sold out, so this nigga here just got 2-3 weeks and he'll be gone. Like all the other niggas. This is the way they thought. But we had studied all of this. You got to remember, by this time you could see that we already got the game. Whatever we're writing about, it's more of this. But we got the game on what's going on in the world at that time. We've been to South America smuggling cocaine. We've been to Africa participating in the liberation movement. We've been to Europe, Scandinavia, and all that, just looking around. And so we know something about the world. You could tell by all of what we're writing here that we understand what's going on. So if we go back to 1966, in those days, the American white man's program was very effective. So he studied the community, and when they came across me, I was 66, I'd been a Muslim for a while, a Negro Muslim. And that's bad enough. I mean, if you believe the black man is God and the white man is the devil, why, that's exactly opposite of what he believed. He believed the black man is the devil and the white man is God. So we can't have that, because they feel if you believe it and conceive it, hey man, what do they say? You can achieve it. So if you believe, like he believes the white man is God, especially at that time, then you're going to be godly and you're going to draw everything like him. All angels are going to be white. You ain't going to find no black angels. Where you can find a black angel? All angels is white. They got angel food cake, right? They got devil's food cake. What color is devil's food cake? Right? Angel food cake. They just made some angel food cake down at the house last night. I'm telling you. As white as it could be. Got frosting all on it. It's angel food cake. No, but remember, I had a black day, you had a bad day. This experience is very enlightening. And I feel white all over. Oh, so you feel good. Right? So everything, if you the white God, and you go around looking for Jesus, they say he's the Son of God, so you look at him. That wasn't no Middle Eastern guy they used to have. That guy was some type of Italian or somebody. He had that long hair. Sometimes he had blonde hair. I don't know how they'd get blonde hair in that part of the world. But right, that big heart, they're knocking on the door. You just open up and let him into your heart or your house, whatever. Right? Hey, man, the Son of God is white. Very simple. No more analysis. God is white. That's the Son of God. He's white. Right? You don't have to, no more analysis. Finished. That's the Son. Any of us got kids. You look at the kids. You look at the daddy. Like we look at your kids. I know who your daddy is. It's very simple. Right? It ain't no big question about that. I don't even have to ask her, who's boy? The boy's running around here. Oh, there he is right there. You don't even have to ask. So this is the Son of God. He's white. That's it. And when you die, you're going to go to heaven, and guess what you're going to turn? White as snow. Now, this is pretty bad. But remember, the one that hates everything you're about is teaching you everything you know. The white man taught us everything we knew at that time. Can you imagine? So everything, big lips is ugly. Wide noses is ugly. This hair, the Negro, they don't do it as much now. But when we was kids, you take some eggs and lye, make it, it's called conch. Y'all, hair relaxer they call it nowadays. And it burns your head. I guess y'all never got no hair relaxer. Boy, but look at here. You sitting right there in the chair, and you waiting to get into that water because it started burning, because it's straightening your hair, so it's burning your brain. I mean, it's burning your hair. So boy, when you run that cool water on your head, it feels great, but your hair is straight. Can you imagine people go through all that trouble because they don't like their hair? Yeah, they don't like their hair. Why? Because the white man said it's bad hair. And the white man taught you everything you know. So the white man had taught you, if you stumble into some money, go down and spend it on something bright red, get you some red shoes, a red hat. right? And orange underwear, all that, right? Look like a clown and dress like one. He's going to teach you, he's teaching you this, right? So that means he's going to teach you, number one, do not save any money. Waste it. And in the meantime, when you get paid on Friday, do not go home and take it to your family. You go straight to the gambling house or straight and get drunk. Liquor store. Go to the liquor store. Don't go home. Where are you going to go home? When you stumble in the morning, Saturday morning, or maybe you might stumble in Sunday after being out all that time. And it's very possible you don't have any more money. And your wife is going to be mad at you. And you're not going to be married very long because that's a habit taught to you by boss man. It's a slave perpetuating habit. All right. So now, we got the game on all this. So, two of my friends, they borrowed $200 from me. And they paid me the $200 back, but they paid me back just for being a nice guy. They gave me $500 worth of marijuana in $10 bags. And each one of those $10 bags was, if you got 3 matchboxes for $10, if you had $5, you got 1 matchbox. If you bought a $10, they call it a half a can, they would put 3 matchboxes in it. But these guys put 4 in mine, almost 4.5. So they're just full. Now I kept that principle all the time. That's why I got rich, bam, just like that. So now, to me, marijuana was, I didn't get high, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do nothing. I was just, that was bad though. And then what did we do after work? All the youngsters, we'd go over to Bobby Foreman's house and we'd be lifting weights and having a good time. White folks saw that as gang activity. And this is Oakland, 1966. The Black Panther Party was founded in 1966. That means that they're looking for everybody, which they was, that might be a potential leader. So shoot, in East Oakland, everybody, we just known to be, and the kind of the leadership or the leadership clique, right? Didn't drink, didn't get high. I think I sold marijuana for years before I smoked a joint. Then I said, now I see what they spending all this money for. But anyway, the point was, those friends of mine, and I'm going to mention as George Cooper and Jesse Lee. So when I go back to Oakland, I'm going to talk to George. I'm going to say, George, we know that y'all did this. Is it a police officer that directed you to do this? Of course, I know the answer is yes. Whatever the answer is fine with me. But they diverted me from that. But guess what? Was it a diversion or a direction? I am here now because of what they did. You gotta remember. And everything that happened, remember we was talking the other day about when I was coming back from South America, and as soon as I come through customs, I always use my brother's passport. He was a baseball player. And they said, you back from baseball, huh? And I said, no, automatically. I don't know what it called, but. Yeah, they was just going to say, go on through the line. But when I said no, they thought this guy is not playing baseball. He may not even be the guy, right? He don't know that the guy, of course, I know he's a baseball player. I said it because of Nafs Lawama. Now, you got to remember, this is 78. Let me skip through several changes. If you could remember the changes of life at that time. 78, I'm very close to this period. This is 1980 and 1981. When I say no, I go back to the pen for a while. When I come out of the pen, all of this, 1981, all of this is what I voluntarily went back to the pen for. Because here's the conscious thing. The conscious thing is this. Once you become a world traveler and you know yourself and you know a lot of stuff, all this stuff right here, you know that you're going through a struggle, internal struggle. And that nafs amara, you're past that, the physical self. But you've moved into nafs lawama. Nafs lawama is when you become conscious, the self-accusing spirit, if you remember the ayat. That means that you have reached a level where now right and wrong is a question of right and wrong. And you know that if you just left South America and you were successful all that time, say 5 years before, 3, 4 years before, and now you've accepted Islam according to Quran and Sunnah, not no nationalist brand, and you've been studying that. And you've reached a level to where you have to struggle with that, right or wrong. So, you know that prison have been helpful to you all along. Just like when I come out of prison, I'm the imam in jail, and I wrote all of this stuff. The stuff before this is the same stuff. I wrote that in prison. I was the imam in prison, right? And therefore, I put myself in jail just for a couple of years. I put myself back there because I know it's illegal to come back in the country with all of that money. But it's not a big case. It's not like a drug case or anything. So I put myself back in jail. Why? When I go through this, struggle is all over. I'm not where I am now, but I'm ready to roll. You could see, you could taste it, you could see it. So I went back like going back to school. I haven't finished my course. I'm going back. And you do it yourself. You got to realize how much you have to know yourself and how much you have to trust your decisions, that you have already have to have been through several decision-making processes where it comes out correct for you. Leaving the country, right? I had to look at the environment, and I looked at it, I just added it up, and I left. And it was the right thing to do. It had to be right because they copied a movie after that, Superfly. To make sure that it was right one, Superfly TNT was what? Do you remember Superfly TNT? Okay, Superfly TNT, right. He's in Africa right? And he making money in Europe. He done left America, and he left America with $150,000. Now, it wasn't but one Negro in the United States that I knew left America in those days, and he had $150,000. That was me. All right? And Superfly in Africa, Superfly TNT, ain't nothing to it. That's what it's supposed to mean. He got involved with African revolutionaries and ministers and what have you. And there was a big shipment of guns coming back because they're fighting. You would think they were fighting the Portuguese. Remember, Africa was not totally liberated yet. There was still fighting against Portuguese and all those others. And the minister tells Superfly, my house is across from the mosque. So when Superfly is all beat up, he's hearing the adhan, and that's leading him to the masjid. That's as close to my life story as you can get. And when I was up on McNeil Island, 1974, and we saw that movie in prison, all the big Negroes from the West Coast said, "Nigga, you get any royalties off that?" They knew that's what it was about. The guy ain't sit up and he ain't wrote two things in a row just about something that everybody know that that's the only person that did it. The point is this: all of that was in the earlier life, but each stage we had to make decisions. By the time we made a decision in 1978, it was the right decision. Every decision we've made since then is what have us here right now. This is where we want to be. We're doing what we want to do. So our friends that they thought they was diverting me away from black consciousness and all that by turning me into a drug dealer. First marijuana, then cocaine and all that. They wasn't diverting me. That had to be part of Allah's plan to teach me about wealth, power, management, all of those things, right? And teach you, just like we said, I'm not going to let no family turn me around. Now, I want you to think about my life personally. Do you think I'm going to let family turn me around? Absolutely not. You think I'm going to let drugs turn me around? Absolutely not. Fame, glory, all of that stuff, that's why it's all listed. Absolutely not. Suppose I would not have been through all of that. Every one of them would have been a challenge. And when you get up that high, it's a long time. When you fall, that's a long way down, right? What's the mathematics? How many people get up that high? How many big niggas have been through that and haven't crashed down to the ground? Almost, LA, they have more big Negroes out there, than they did here. But it ain't nobody big hardly now. All them Rolls Royces Negroes was driving, all that stuff. Hey man, they didn't cut all of that back. They needed us to deal drugs to black people during my time, in the early time. So they was encouraging it. But after they got all the dealers, by the 1990s and all that, they didn't change it now until we're going to put all them niggas in jail and take all the money back. Little simple stuff. Like, remember I said the white man, remember I was telling you that we had brought some cocaine from Colombia to Mexico City. And there was two women following, one was a black woman, the other was a white woman. They were following me and my partner. We done just got to Mexico City from Colombia. And within a half an hour, I had packed up the white woman, the people with the cocaine, our shipment. That's a lot of money. I asked my friend last time I was there in Oakland, I said, do you know why I did that? He said, no. I said, because I knew they was the police. The police sent them to make sure that I didn't participate in taking that cocaine across the border. Remember, we're in Mexico City. You have to fly up to the border. If you know the map, they got Tijuana, Nogales, Browns. They got all those places. El Paso, was Juarez on this side, the border towns, right? Our next flight would be up to the border, all right? And then I have said many times that the white man always help you get big, then he take all the money back. Remember I said during those periods that I always did something on the side that the white man didn't know about. You know why? He did. He take all his money back. I helped you nigga get this money, that money, da-da-da-da, and now I'm gonna take it back. He done already counted it, right? He know how much money you made. So when I was in Colombia, I did stuff on the side that he didn't know nothing about. That's why when he come to take, I call it his money back, well, no big deal. I got this on the side. But he never knew anything about it. This is a sophisticated game. The game, the rules of survival are so slim. You could see all the people we named, they all fell by the wayside. Hardly nobody. In fact, nobody survived all of this. The ones that did survive, they come home after 30 years in prison and 40 years. It's not the. Now back to my friend, George. I'm going to ask him these questions. I'm going to ask him, and this time, I'm going after the United States government directly, this time. Because I got all the people I'm going to talk to, I won't mention all, but I'm going to mention certain things to specific people. Why? Because 80% of all crime in America is drug related. If the white man is the one that initiated the drug plague, and I can prove it, that means you got to release 80 out of 80% of the niggas in the penitentiary. Yeah, that's what we're doing this time. That's what we're doing, and we're threatening him so bad that he wanted to make a deal. I tell you what, we'll let 40% of the niggas out of the penitentiary, right? We said, no, boss man, you got to let 60% of the niggas out. Tell you what, we'll let 50% of the niggas out of the penitentiary. And we'll make a little humble pie statement about some bad apples and a drug thing. Well, that's a deal, cracker. That's what we're working on right today. We are black. We've been doing this for over 50 years. We know what we're doing. And I'll ask you this, have every statement and forecast been correct since the time you've been here?
Yeah. I kind of think on it a little bit,
yeah. Yeah, okay. So that's what we're working on this time. And when we came here, we just came here with, we already had the test laid out. And number one, what African Americans worked with Iranians. we knew they would be snitches. And we tested them. I was with one of the guys, and you know where we bought cars and different things, like we got all of them out there. And I said, yeah, that car right there that's not the plate that belongs on it. And he tensed up. He was mad. He didn't know. That's against the law. That's what he was thinking. The next day, it was at Benning Road up here, wherever it was. It would be, that's where they got me at. When you turn left up there at Benning Road in Southern, they had the police waiting there, a roadblock. And they got my car and they took it off, and I had to get $600 to pay it. When everybody left one time, they asked me, man, look like everybody gone. Is so-and-so still here? I said, yeah. The guy, I don't know. He said, oh, okay. He was a snitch that said that. Yeah, why? Because this is Washington, D.C. People, hey man, we came to Washington, D.C. from Oakland now. This is in Oakland. You see we got the game, but we came here to put all the small pieces together so we could do what? Exactly what we're doing now. So, with our house there in Oakland, I just talked to my niece. She's been working with the government. I said, hey, look, I want y'all to, remember our house is on Section 8? So I want y'all to fix up our house. Now it looks like a junkyard, real junkyard. That's what they did. So we want y'all to fix that up. Get 2 years back rent, because the lady stayed there for 2 years without paying anyway. It's okay. You turn on all the utilities and everything, and that's what you do. And I got a certain amount of money that I want them to, it's like we got a certain amount of money for the car dealer, car guy. Yeah, he can do it or he don't have to do it. But that's what this is my statement. I'm making these statements because now this is a new type of counteroffensive. This is a counteroffensive. And in a counteroffensive, it means that you now see, they have always dictated terms to everybody. If you get a case, they say, nigga, they just give you 15 cases and say we let you plead 1 or 2 of them, and you can either go to pen for 200 years or you just go for 5 years, whatever you want to do, right? They dictate them terms. They can't dictate nothing to me. They can't dictate anything. Not only they can't now, but they never could for decades. Why? Because when I thought it was time to go to the penitentiary, I'd put myself in the penitentiary, just like I'm taking myself by the hand, and taking the key and unlocking the door and stick myself in the pen. That way I don't have to struggle with Naslawama. And that's what happened. When I came out, after 1.5 years or 2, it was a little simple parole violation, some little dumb stuff. I come right out, and all this is already written. Can you imagine that I go to jail and I'm doing all this stuff? Technically, most of it is from 1979, 1980, in that period. So when I get out in 1980, the government sent me right back to prison. And remember, I showed y'all that message from the parole board. We don't want you to do no mosque or Muslim church. It's 81. And everything they said in there was wrong. Everything they said in there was wrong. I didn't argue with him. I said, I don't care. It's fine. All I'm going to do is finish writing all of the stuff that I'm there on a mission. What that means is that you develop a certain amount of trust and historical perspective that you see that there's mission orientation in all of this stuff. It's not haphazard. How many people will trust that? I mean, just think about it. How many people will trust when they're getting a whole lot of money, they don't say, well, I think I'll slow down and do this, that, or another. I'm going to retire for a little while. That's what I would do. I said, hey, man, something smelly going on around here. So I'd say, okay, I'll take it easy. I'm retired. You got it? I know I don't do nothing. All right. Or look at a picture. Remember, the system always trying to alter your behavior and your attitude. They're trying to change you. And once you become their product, you do whatever they want automatically. They don't have to come and tell you to do this or do that. They have produced an attitude. I now don't like niggas anymore. Therefore, everything I do is going to be, if I get in a pinch, well, I just dump the niggas. Because they niggas, because they've been stealing from me, they've been doing this, right? So, no. You're not going to get anybody, generally. The numbers generally don't produce people that continue to work constantly and fearlessly on the liberation of their people for 50 or 60 years. They don't do it. They don't do it. Some last for 5 years. Maybe some might last for 10 years. I haven't seen it before. Even on campus, even everywhere you go, you take a sincere preacher or a sincere doctor or a sincere lawyer that gets out and I'm going to help humanity. And after about 2-3 years in that system, he said, ain't no justice in this. What, 97% of the people plea bargaining? What's the justice? Right? Everybody go to jail is a plea bargain. The only people get away with anything is the big rich, and they always get away with it. Or they get 2 weeks in jail for stealing $1 zillion or openly lying, flying around with liar pants on fire flag, right? You see them on TV. Mr. Cohen, he did this, he did that. Well, we just let him out of jail because there's coronavirus in there and we don't want him to get, this is ridiculous. But that's the beauty about now. Why is the time for us to do this? Why we didn't do it before? This is the time. Remember, timing is everything on this stuff. So, actually, Tuesday I'll go into detail. I'll start specifically with these subjects right here. Focus on the future. We went dealing with the past, just briefly. But focus on the future starts with a comprehensive, system-wide counteroffensive. It's legal, it's historical, it's epic, and it's political. And we're going to deal with all those subjects very specifically. We are challenging the system. They ain't challenging us. They can't do anything. They can have the clowns call and say, da-da-da-da, right? They can't do anything. They've reached it. That's it. If they could do something else, they would be doing it, right? If they could do anything else, they would be doing it. They can't, because even you put a block on them killing you or anything like that. Why is that? Because we have several thousand DVDs, right? That's what we got. And everybody has seen them and heard them, right? Yeah. And we have, I don't know how many, I got all of those cartons and cartons from decades ago. I got cassettes from back during this era. We recorded most of everything we did. It explained over and over and over and over again. You see what I mean? So, about martyrdom, if you kill somebody, you make them famous. Everybody going, what's that nigga was talking about is so serious that the white man got to get rid of him, right? We don't have but a few lectures of Fred Hampton and those guys. Just have a few talks.
I did actually sat and looked at the trailer for that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again.
Would
Would you say that again? What you just said?
I think he was just saying
You said something. You said something about the
The trailer
the trailer for the movie. That they're supposed to have.
about Fred
Yeah,
Hampton.
I looked at the trailer. Yeah, it looks. They did a good job with that trailer.
Right,
They
right.
did a good job.
Well, see, the thing is that the point I make about that is that you don't have to worry. I tell people every week, when it gets hot on the white man, he's going to throw the Negro overboard first. So everybody that's telling for boss man, just like they did this guy, they show,
Yeah, so when I saw the trailer, I realized what you were talking about. When
Right.
you said on Thursday.
Right.
When the guy that paid off, they gave the police the schematics of how that-
Yeah,
like, he's got kids and like that's your legacy now.
yeah,
When you sell out,
yeah.
you just mess it up not for yourself, but for 2-3 generations down.
For generations down the line, somebody gonna see that movie, they're gonna say, man, that's so-and-so's granddaddy.
Yeah.
They're gonna say, man, that nigga sold out for $300. He gave the guy the whole scheme for the apartment and all of that. And Fred's mother was pregnant at the time. In fact, I've spoke with, we call him Chairman Fred Hampton's son. He goes around to speak a lot at that. They call him Chairman Fred. Yeah, he goes around and speak a lot. At least he did up to about 10 years ago. But anyway, just imagine. We put all this stuff out. I'll just look at them and make sure that they got video on them. Then I'll just run them off and we can put out whatever we like. In other words, they can't do anything about, there's enough on the videos that they have in South Africa, they have in Iran, they have everywhere. Right, they got all this stuff, Somebody, like we mentioned the people to download some of the stuff we got, I would just imagine that several people have downloaded all of our articles, As-Sabiqun. Okay, and I imagine some people have downloaded all the lectures or a whole part of them. You see what I mean? Therefore, that's a protection. That's why we can just come right out and say, boss man, what we're doing is we're giving our people an opportunity. It'll be a little uncomfortable for family members and friends. Like we talked to my friend, we've been friends since he was 12 years old. And I said, man, okay, y'all, y'all did this, that, and the other. Why was it? Whatever they say, I already know what the reason is. And I know when we was smuggling cocaine from South America, I'm the only one that ever showed up on any court thing. Nobody that was ever involved with me ever went to jail or nothing else. Except my brother got a case back in the 60s, 69. Because the people around me set him up because he's my brother and he's getting into the thing, so he'll move up quicker than us. So, yeah, I knew it then, but I didn't say nothing to them niggas. I didn't say nothing to them. It wasn't time. I'll say it now. Well, all the people who was involved with me then, they already know I know what was happening. Because this was meant to happen. What we're saying and doing now was meant to happen. Any change along the way would have changed the proportions, and you know what I mean? Any change at all, right, would have altered. That's why when you see these movies about Star Trek and all of that, when they go visit a planet that's backwards and stuff, they say you can't introduce anything. If they don't have no knives, you can't introduce a knife to those primitive people, or you definitely can't introduce a ray gun, because if you introduce it to them, they'll kill all the other people except one or two of them will survive and find out how you did it. Now you got an arms race, right? So, but that's the same thing in life. You can't introduce anything into the environment without it being designed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll cover this in detail on Tuesday, but what I want to say is this. Don't worry about a thing. Look, this is the time to do that. There's confusion in the country. No, you have to have timing. When is the time? We could have did this 5 years ago. We could have did this 20 years ago. We could have did it any time we wanted. We've been had this thing signed, sealed, and delivered since before you came here. Just think, we haven't moved, this is the same stuff. It's repetitive, right? So it's all been, but when you're going to do what you're going to do, that new worldism that we talk about, that you have to have a new man to produce a new world, right? We have to introduce these ideas to a good chunk of the people. I think it will be to Muslims and basically to Americans, white ones and black ones. Remember the police when y'all had that little video on? Right, yeah. What was he saying? We wouldn't let them white folks come. So I just knew it was all a setup because I can see he's coming. But okay, we'll play along with it. So the next day, we came with the microphone and we were saying, they hate this, which in reality they do. They hate it don't make no difference whether they bringing them all out or not. Some is to play certain games. When Allah wants something to happen, He can have the enemy of humanity do something, and He don't think He's helping humanity, but that's what the Quran says, I only made men and jinn that they serve me. So the jinn and all that, they can't do anything against what Allah wants. They can't. They don't have the power, right? So, right now, all the stuff that's happening, just be certain that this is all from Allah. And they might not have chose the people to serve Allah, but they chose old dumb Donald, right? Now the people that chose him didn't say we wanted him to be a big help for God's cause. That's not why he's there. He's there to do the dumb stuff he's doing, right? That's why he's there. But the dumb stuff that he's doing is producing other things. I'm telling you. Anyway, so I'll start right here on this page Tuesday because I don't want to ramble on and on. And I see you put the stuff in the oven down there, right? That's very good. I turned it up, I think, to 300. So, no, it's good. It's right on time.
I remember you had said 250.
250, that's what it was on when it was on 250, it was right. But anyway, this push is to right a historical wrong. The war on drugs was a big war designed by the system. We all know if we saw or read anything. It was designed by the system to break the black community, which it did, to give them probable cause to invade or to be a bigger presence in the black community, which they were 100% successful. More successful than they thought it. They destroyed the black community. Okay, you ever hear about reparations? No, we're pushing for, you gotta understand, this is something that they did, and there's enough circling around. Now remember, just when we get the Freedom of Information Act and all that, they're not gonna give you everything they got, but it's gonna be little pieces here and there, and we'll demand more than we do. And imagine, this last 50 years will backfire. It'll backfire, inshallah. Not only will we push for the legalization of drugs, because before 1914, heroin and cocaine, that's where Coca-Cola come from. Cocaine is coke. It was, okay, no, that was real. That was just real. It was cocaine in there when you drank some coke. Bam, yeah, man, that's all right there. You was juiced up. And so, it would be better for drugs to be legal, not for Muslims, but legal, than for the police. Imagine if 80% of the crime is drug related. That means you can get rid of 80% of the police, 80% of the judges, and you can let 80% of the people out of the pen. Right? Because they did, you gotta remember, they did this. There is enough circumstantial and hands-on evidence to prove that the government did this as a war on black people. Everybody knows that. Okay, as a war on black people. Now, instead of reparations for slavery, this is hands-on, up-to-date reparations. That's what we're doing now. That's our mission right now. And Boss Man knows our mission. Ain't a whole lot he can do about it, because we'll raise the issue more and more. Now, if he don't respond, remember now, we got demonstrations to make down at CARE. We got a staff to hire to print, right? We got programs we can do, and we'll get the word out, and we had a staff to do it. See, we're in the process of warning them about what we're getting ready to do. And they can surrender if they want. Of course they're not going to surrender. But remember now, before you attack somebody in Islam, you had to go and give them a chance to, you had to stand out there and say, we're giving y'all a chance to surrender. We're following the Sunnah. We're following the Sunnah. We don't care whether they do or not. And, okay, so this is the time for that issue. They got all kind of conspiracy theories now that ain't no, what's this Q thing? Is that a QAnon or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. It ain't nothing. They ain't never write about nothing. They never write. And then the poor lady is born in Oakland, the police lady, the vice president lady. She's born in Oakland and raised in Oakland. That's my town. I got paperwork when she was a state attorney general. Yeah, Kamala Harris, that she, from California, there's her name. She was a DA over in San Francisco and the Bay Area. That's like hiring the sheriff. That child, look at here, her record on black people, talking about black people. She wanted to put all the mothers in jail. That if their kids didn't go to school, they wanted to put the parents in jail. That's her. That girl talking about soft on crime, hey man, she was the Attorney General of California. Shoot. The dictator, that child, look at here. That's all right, let her become the vice president. That'll be good. Because they got to pretend in it. They got to pretend. Don't worry about it. Everything is going our way. The whole world. We've chosen the right allies all the time. We chose Iran as an ally years ago. That don't mean they're perfect, but we're allies of Iran. We chose China as an ally. We studied all of our literature, remember? From Chairman Mao's time and all of that, up to now. In fact, we just took guerrilla warfare and changed it to psychological guerrilla warfare and used the same principles of physical guerrilla war, but for psychological guerrilla warfare, all from their long march. And if you were to read our literature, you'll see long march, protracted struggle, and all of our stuff of those days. The point is, and I'll close with this, we, with Allah's help, will acquire all the records from the state. And remember, they've been monitoring us for just decades. They got our records from everywhere, Africa, everywhere. They just got them. Okay, they'll say, well, we got to redact some of that. Or give us what you want. Then as soon as we get it, we'll say this ain't enough, we want more. Right, but it doesn't make a difference. This is so substantiated that we could prove our case on this stuff almost with no evidence except what we can remember. That's how concrete this stuff is. Remember redundancy over and over and over and over and over again. We've been talking redundancy for over 10 years. Why? Because over and over, what happens? The pattern of behavior, the pattern of expectations, the pattern is just so clear. So that's what we'll be going over, and we're going to be dealing with our family, our friends, and we're making demands. They ain't making no demands on us. They're just not making no demands on us. So we thank the system for this, what is Counter Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Negro on the world stage. Now, are we on the world stage or not? That's what we got to think of. Are we right here on the world stage? What people from Iran, people from everywhere, boom. And so what? Whether CNN or whoever, their job might be to keep it away, but everybody else's job is to keep it in the public's eye. So we have the most famous people from Iranian television, right? Boop. They might not have known what they was doing. They had another idea, some silly idea. It's fine. That's why you don't see us say, no, I ain't gonna do that, man. But whatever they want us to do, I just do something else. Almost every time. Yeah, almost every time. Anyway, So we're gonna close out. Are there any questions or any comments? But we going up in the white man's behind, because the white man has been a bad boy. He's been bad boy. He's been bad boy. That's all you can say. He's not been good. That's all we're saying. And remember, we're not doing this with hatred or malice or anything. Everything we're doing is out of basic goodness. We want to help people. That's what we want to help. And it don't make no difference who they use against us. That's okay. You know, there's a natural law. Like if we down in the weight pile and people keep stacking iron on the bar, okay, if we lift it, we get stronger and stronger. They might get a little bit better from stacking it on, but we get all the experience. We gain the strength. They keep the way, we're gonna stack it on. So that means if the government keep pushing at us and pulling at us and doing this and doing that, we're getting stronger and sharper all the time. The people that's doing it, they're not getting that much smarter. So as you grow and develop, pretty soon, the people that are assisting the system, they're not growing that much. They don't know it, but you blasting away on a rocket ship, and they're looking smaller and smaller and smaller. It's just like the idiots that call on the phone, right? Why you think I don't block them off the phone? I leave it right on the phone so they can keep calling me. If I want to answer, I'll answer. If not, I keep calling, and they just keep showing up that they called, right? And maybe now and then I'll answer, but it doesn't make any difference whether I answer or don't answer. It doesn't have any, but they just keep doing it over and over again. Why? It's all they can do. They don't have nothing else. And they're not pretending like they're at a psychological end game. And I'll close with this for sure. If you look all around the world, Boss Man done blew it. He done blew it with his allies, his friends in Canada. His friends right there in Canada, they said, hey, remember the 51st day, what are you talking about, man? I mean, we don't need, okay. And Mexico, shoot, that's their biggest trading partners. And he want all the white folks to help. What's name? Pompeo is going all around telling all the people about, we don't want you to get on the highway, whatever this stuff is. And China, look, China is so slick, you can't hear the news without China's in Abu Dhabi. There's 200,000 Chinese in little old Abu Dhabi. There's millions of Chinese all over Africa now. Millions. The Belt and Road. In other words, Boss Man is surrounded. He can't do nothing about it. We done chose a winning team. It wouldn't make a difference though, because we're gonna do what we gotta do with everything that Allah done put in our lap, and it's there clean and free. Hey, are there any questions, any comments? We didn't mean to, any questions, any comments? Allahu Akbar, that'd be nice. If you can send him a message back, tell him to hook the program up. Tell him to hook the program up, and we'll be happy to show up. In fact, in the United States, Yeah. Yep. Yeah, just tell them to hook the program up and give us a call. Are there any more comments, any questions?
Yeah, it was a, had a compliment. It said, thank you so much, my brother. I forget which part of the talk you said this on, but he said, blessed to have you in my life, brother. This is David Chandler. Something you said must have touched him.
Oh, okay, alhamdulillah.
But that's it for, so that's, oh, I did have a question though. So, on the topic of getting organized and,
Mm-hmm.
building institutions that we need.
Yes.
Because I remember I asked you a question kind of about, creating the alternative systems, and I was kind of along the lines of, are we on the hook for instituting those? And you answered that question, yeah, we kind of on the hook for it. Not on the hook, but, we have to do our part on that. But can you speak a little bit to, with building these institutions, Uncle Sam's, he's, on a downward trajectory, but he can still, send informants.
Oh, definitely.
Sabotage.
Okay, right.
If you could speak a little bit to some of the strategies we can use to still get stuff done, even with building these,
Okay. We could say this is the fifth, let's say the fifth cycle. When we was dealing with 1980, 81 and all of that, let's call that the second, we could call that the second cycle. We call that the second cycle because that's the cycle you could tell how far we had progressed by what we was talking about. Say 81 and all that. Okay, so since that 15-year cycle, 66 to 81, that's about 15 years, yeah. We had evolved a long way because by this time, we realized there's something special going on. There's something special going on. It's just clearly special because the road is being cleared by then. All the people that are in the way of movement, they're pulling aside. Maybe Jesse Jackson got 84 and 88 to run for presidency, dumb stuff like that, Jesse run. But the road is being clear, especially the Islamic picture. By that time, our brothers up in New York and Mellow Yellow and them, all of those people are, it's 83, they're in place by then. All of those people are in place. They're acting according to their function. So by 85, we designed a program that would get us up to the stage of strategic management under conditions of repression and strategy. So that was at, let's say 85 to up in the 85, 95. Yeah, 2005. Let's call that a 20-year period, 15-year period. Yeah. Okay. We knew what we were involved in then. So the period that we used all the way up to past 2000s with all the groups in California that are part of our group and everybody's there and we're having demonstrations, it's big. That's what they call big. But to us, we're playing along with the program because we know they're gonna, like before, if we don't cooperate with them and be a figurehead, they're going to crash that program. Now, imagine how big that program is. This masjid is full of people. Our other masajid are full of people. They're full of people. They're African Americans, immigrants, everybody, right? Okay. So during that stage, we was coasting along and we was pretending according to what that time called for. We had adjusted to that. Okay. Now, if we have the 2005 period where up till now, just say up to now, shoot, that's actually 15 years. Technically, we started that in 2002 when we had our last national program here. And the way everybody acted, we went into our mode. Within a certain amount of years, the community had, Abdul Malik had left out there. They had all their different things in Oakland and da-da-da-da-da. And here, we were still going through the media, Deutsche Welle, the press up there in New York, Hannity, all that, we was going through that. Because they was trying to use that media to destroy us, to make us say something and do stuff, and for us to get arrogant. Yeah, we bad, we gonna do this to you white folks, we gonna, yeah, like a dumb nigga, like a dumb brother would do, which, you know, all right. During those times, we made certain lectures, Goliath and his forces, institution building, and all of that for that period. Now, for this period, especially, we're definitely off into it because when you get back into your little physical fitness when everything gels, which it's doing right now, we're building new institutions to carry us along this road, just like we did on those other things, to carry us along that road. Part of those institutions are this first stage. This first stage includes fixing up the masjid, fixing up cars, fixing up property, doing all that. That's a part of it. Readjusting our property in California, all that is a part of this first stage within the next couple of years, something like that. That's part of it, okay? But the phase after that, and including this phase, is the moving into, now remember, here's what we're handling. Well, how are we going to get confidence from the immigrant community? Well, when we show them what the government has been doing and the part we're playing, they're going to say, those niggas are smart. They got to. If they don't, it don't make no, look, what we're accountable for is the execution to the best of our ability to predetermined goals that we believe emanate from the Quran, Hadith, and from the historical process. So, right now, exactly what we're doing right now, confronting our friends, okay, confronting the system, making demands on the systems. Yeah, you've been bad, you've produced this, that, and other, and we're not alone. Like, you know, I tried this stuff in '73. Can you imagine a black person telling the federal court that the police, they did all of this. Of course, it was true. But the people, you couldn't stop them from laughing or just being horrified. So we're right in this early stage will complete and bring us up back to where we're recognized by the public. We have a standard of excellence. We're a worldwide, let's call it world-class movement. Yeah, that's where we're headed right now. All of the things we're doing and we're talking about, we're actually doing them. When we go to California, actually when we say we're going to confront friends, relatives, and all of that, that is confronting them because they're watching this. Or somebody is telling them, they're not stupid enough to not pay attention. And we know that they're watching because they say certain things that are from privacy, that you know your so-called best friends, if they say something that only someone that could have seen that in privacy, and they're saying it. They're saying it's fine. You don't stop them and say, man, how you know that? You just cruise along like you don't even notice. The other thing is, we might be moving out and away from governmental underestimation.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, okay, we've been playing with them. For the last 2 cycles, we've been having, okay, put it like this. Malcolm and King, like Malcolm said, we're victims of America. We're not victims. The first go around, 66 to in the 70s, we were victims of the system did anything they want to, they did it. But since we kicked in the 80s, we were not victims. We they still doing the same stuff. They still do stuff now, but we're not victims. Because they can't force us to do nothing. They can't make us do nothing, and they can't alter our behavior. You see what I mean? Therefore, a victim means that they can do basically anything they want to you. They can't do that to us. They can do them, but we respond the way we want to. So, right now, we don't have to worry about infiltrators. There's no way you can have a movement in America without having infiltrators, saboteurs, and all of that. We take that into normal account. We wouldn't even, it's been 2 cycles ago that we even tried to not have that. We ain't even tried to not have, we just say welcome. And are we right? You're doggone right we're right, because look where we are. We're at the crossroads between evolving to where we want to go, and Boss Man is at the crossroads to degeneration and dysfunctionalism. He's dysfunctional, not us. Right? We're not dysfunctional. They are dysfunctional, bad. And some of it they playing, and a lot of it they not playing. They just, hey man, this is real. Okay, so anyway, I hope I answered some of the things. But we're not even gonna try to not be infiltrated, not be sabotaged. We have to expect, that's what expectations, we expect certain things to happen, and we expect them to do it in a certain way. We expect it. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Slip in another question while you're answering mine. Brother said, Imam Abdullah Musa, what is going to happen to Africa with the Chinese having taken over their resources?
That is a good question. No, it's a good, very good question, because we have to depend on some of the Chairman Mao period of China. When I was in Tanzania, the Chinese built the Tanzan Railroad from Dar es Salaam to Lusaka, Zambia. They worked harder on the railroad than the blacks did. They really worked hard. And they only charged them maybe, if they charged them anything at all, their loans would be 2% interest, like almost nothing, and not compounded interest. China is bigger and more strategically located than almost anybody in ancient and historical times. Out of the 17 choke points in the world, like the Suez Canal, and like the Straits of Hormuz, and the part where the border between China and Russia, which is a long border, all of those things, the Chinese are there. And they are in a big time position now. So far, it's been friendly. It's been 50-50 exchange, They haven't acted as a colonial power. You have to stay woke, though, because a lot of the immigrants from China are not ideological immigrants. They're like the Chinese, like it was a thing about, they built a stadium in one of the countries, African countries. And then the workers went there and helped build a stadium for Africa, a cheap contract, good, and they did good work. And then the Chinese looked around and they said, man, they send pictures back home and it's blue sky. China wouldn't have blue sky. They say blue sky. And then the Chinese are now economic immigrants. In other words, each African country have if they have 200,000 Chinese in Abu Dhabi, that means ain't nobody playing. And they got hundreds of thousands of Chinese in Africa, different than the Chinese 50-something years ago. Those were ideological for communism and for, brotherhood and all of that. So right now, they've changed the ideology. Not changed it, but for instance, when Chairman Mao was running things, it was for the oppressed, the peasants, and da-da-da-da. Deng Xiaoping came in a while later, and his idea was getting rich is glorious. Now, and he did the old Chinese laundryman trick. Oh, bossy, bossy. Yeah. The Chinese just came out of that last couple of years. They have discussions on TV. Should we continue, the submissive attitude, or should we just tell boss man? Now, what happened is boss man just bothered them so much that they got to, stand up for themselves. But this question, I'm not going to delve deeply into it. We're, with the Chinese, there's billions of benefits, like China and Iran. It's not only China and Africa, it's China and everybody. I mean, China and everybody. Yeah, that Belt and Road, that thing is almost finished. Some places it's finished. And it's helping everybody, like, you know, like I talked about Mombasa, Kenya, to Nairobi. That train was 12 hours before, and now it's 4 hours. The train, the one the British built, was 12 hours, and your stuff would get old and rotten. But now you can get it from the tropics in 4 hours. All right. There's a type of stability with Iran. All the goods, most of the goods in the bazaar in Iran are made in China. China has signed a 25-year agreement with Africa. I mean, with Iran. And Iran still deals with Iran. I mean, China still deals with Iran, although it's an embargo against them. So they have a relationship for the last several thousand years. When I was in Iran in the 80s and in the 90s and all the other periods, it was always a big Chinese delegation there. And I used to sit across from the guy that handled all the keys for the Chinese delegation. You know, they have one manager, and he'd have keys all over the table for the Chinese. So China is moving into, like now, a lot of the kids is wealthy. Most of the big new millionaires or billionaires are in China. They on the road. Okay, with all of that wealth, you lose a lot of the ideology. But the Chinese Communist Party have lifted up 600-800 million people. That's a lot of people to middle classism. Now they going back to get the others several hundred million, the poor, real poor. They're actually doing that. So they doing stuff that communism or socialism with Chinese characteristics. I think the leaders of China are really visionaries and possibly utopians because of perfect communist society. See, believe it or not, you have, for them, they believe you have to go through capitalism and then go to utopian communism. That you can't go from poor and raggedy and then go to a utilitarian society. They say you got to go through capitalism first. You don't know what they're up to. But to answer the question, the Chinese are not visualized like Lebanese are businessmen in Africa. They have a bad reputation. A lot of the Indians, I don't know if y'all would remember Idi Amin. Idi Amin, back in the old days, put all of the Indian businessmen out of Uganda because they were like all us. The Indian businessman owned 95% of the businesses. And in most countries, they still do over there. The Indian that came to work on the railroad, he stayed. Like the Chinamen that came to build stadiums, they look up and they stay. And then after a while, a few of their friends, this has been going on for 25 years or more, they say, hey, Africa, all that land is free and the air is fresh and clean. So they're not trying to come to America, they're going to Africa. Everything is free and cheap and da-da-da-da-da. And they can buy a farm that goes for 1,000 miles almost for a handful of, right? The Chinamen have the opportunity to bring the world into the first level of peace, harmony, and tranquility. And they're not talking as much about communism as they are Confucianism. Confucianism. And Confucianism has a lot of ethics and morals in it. Confucius say this, Confucius say that. So they're adjusting. So we'll have to have a wait and see attitude. But the Chinese have a better opportunity. They've ran circles around the Americans. Nobody else is even close. And it's not Africa. The Caribbean initiative from 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, they everywhere. I mean, and you have to hope that they control themselves. That's going to be serious. That means the government have to control their Chinese expatriates, because the expatriates are business people that are kind of greedy. They just want a better life. They don't care anything about that. And when they get from China over there, and they can spend a few dollars and buy all the Africans they want for $5 or $10 a piece, right? And then they can begin to shave the laws in each African country against the African businessman and to their side. Like 25 years ago in DC, the Koreans had bought their way into the system down here, and a black seller had a harder time and had more police problems with the police than the Koreans did. Remember all the Koreans, you'd see them selling stuff? You gotta be careful. The power is devastating. The Chinese leadership seem to be on the right road because they're doing certain key things, going back and getting the poor, you know. Yeah, they actually, that's their policy. They're going back and getting the poor. They already got a big middle class, and they don't even use money much anymore. They use that phone. Everything you do, they just phone, and that's off you go. Everything almost. As far as technology go, China and Japan. I give you a thing about Japan. When I was going to Sri Lanka, it had to be at least 10 years ago. Well, you go through Japan. So we go through Japan and Tokyo. We had to go to Lusaka and then back to Tokyo. It was not tornado, but whatever they call them over there. It was, you know, bad weather. So we stayed in Tokyo. And so the airline give you a hotel. I looked on the thing. It said, Muhammad Al-Asi and I was traveling together. It said for those rooms, it was then $1,400 per night. That's what they cost. But, you know, where we have a stingy bottles and stuff like that, in those days, when you sat on that Japanese toilet, you push the button, and then you can push the other button, water comes around your behind, then you push the button and it'll dry your behind. I said, man, That was then. I said, man, look at, and that was then. So, have you seen pictures of Chinese cities? How modern they look. You've seen pictures of the empire, them old buildings, 100 years old. It's normal. The infrastructure in America, you know the trains in China, they go 200 and something miles an hour. You don't have to catch no plane nowhere, just get on the train. Zoop, and they gone, and they build them themselves. Imagine, you could go from here to probably California, maybe in one day or something like that. Yeah, maybe 16 hours or something, 24 hours at the most. From here, 3,000 miles, you gone. I mean, them things are serious. Have you ever been on this train here that goes from, we take it to Boston sometime, the Excelsior or something. You just have to carry your lunch and everything. That's just to Boston. Hey man, you go from here to Boston on that other train in not 15 minutes, but something like a couple of an hour. It's got to be an hour. That's it. Because that's how fast long the plane takes. But imagine you got to go through all that stuff in the airport and this, that, and other. You jump on the train. The point is that everybody is passing the infrastructure, the bridges, the highways, everything is old in America. Like, remember I was saying I gave a lecture at one of the universities. I was talking about Las Fábricas en Estados Unidos son viejo. The factories in America, this was in the 1970s, are old. Right. That's what I was saying then. Las Fábricas en Japón, in Japan, son nuevo, they're new. That was then. But what do we have? We have Toyotas, we have all of those now. Where's GM? You find any GM? No more GM. Nobody, I don't think nobody, does anybody drive an American car in here? I don't think so. I don't think so. A few years ago, not a few, a long time ago, everybody drove American cars. The point is that we're entering in a new dispensation. Now, we have a better chance with Chinese than we do with the white folks, because he automatically, you know, you just, you know, no, forget it, you know, talking about Black Lives Matter. They still shooting black people down. There's somebody got shot yesterday, day before, down in Georgia, somewhere. You don't have a chance, no matter how hard you work. I was watching the thing on the Tuskegee Airmen yesterday again, and they talk about how bad it was for them. And some of them, they just give them a medal last year when Clinton was president or something. You know what I mean? And that was back in World War II. You know, the American soldiers in Australia, of all people. In Australia, in World War II, they had a serious race policy. But guess what? The Australians, they oppressed they black people, but Americans, they loved them. They actually, and if it was a fight, they was trying to transfer the American policy of racism from America to Australia, and Australians didn't go for it. They said, we ain't doing that. They're here to help us win the war. And black people married Australian women, white women, and they just, didn't even want Negroes to mix with white people. And all the country folks said, and if it was a fight, if the American soldiers was beating up, the MPs was beating up a black person, the Australians, white folks, would jump in, hey, these guys are our friends and all that stuff. What I'm trying to say is the world changes. we have a better chance with Chinamans than we did with Americans. They already showed what they, I mean, good God Almighty, this is what, 2020, and they still putting knees on people. That one knee on that brother's set American foreign policy back 200 years, easy. It's just too gruesome. You know what I mean? It ain't nothing they can, and everybody, you got to remember now, everybody is with us now. All in Europe and everywhere, well, not all of them, but a lot of them. No, a lot of them. Okay, so the point is, I hope I answered the question finally. We're prepared to take a small chance with China, because China is a up-and-coming power, and it has a longer period of history, 4,000 or 5,000 years. And the Chinese was never dominated by Africans or anything. It was all Europeans that did them. I don't know if y'all ever watched Bruce Lee or any of those guys. They were all Chinese nationalists. They were all Chinese nationalists, whether they were from Hong Kong, wherever they was, they still was Chinese nationalists. And the last 100 and so years since the Opium War, China was a big country that was abused by Europe. In the last years was the Chinese, they felt like getting their manhood or humanhood back. And they feel like we done did that now. What they have to do is calm down, and let's hope that utopianism, that they're talking a little, will settle in. Well, with Boss Man, you ain't got a chance. With the Chinamans, you got a Chinaman's chance. Y'all know where that saying come from? A Chinaman's chance? You know, when they built the railroads, the Chinese helped build the railroads. And when they would blow up some tunnels and everything, they would tie a Chinaman on the rope. He would light the dynamite, and then they would pull him up real quick. And a Chinaman's chance meant that they didn't always get him up. You know, it meant you got a Chinaman's chance. Yeah, you got a Chinaman's chance. That means you ain't got no guarantee. It ain't even 50-50. You got a low chance of getting pulled up. Yeah, you got a Chinaman's chance. It means you don't have no big shot at this, you know. And they all remember that. See, you got to remember, the oppressor don't remember nothing. He steps on your head and just mauls you. He don't remember, right? The big gangster that beat all the kids up at school, when all the kids get all grown up and he's all poor and been all over and alcoholic, and they strong and healthy and nerds and everything. Yeah, remember me? You used to take my lunch. I don't remember you. He don't. He don't remember the kids. He just was brutalizing all of them. America, Europe, especially Britain, they don't remember. They don't even like to talk about what they did to Native Americans. They just don't remember. But everybody else remember. Boy, they got a good memory. So anyway, I hope I answered half the question. Right. Yeah. Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay.